All right, boys, I had a weird few days there. I was gone for nearly a week. Let's do a way too early MVP conversation. This is not going to be like an official ranking. It's more so just how's it looking for a bunch of guys right now. As always, the order doesn't mean that much. It's just the order I happen to talk about guys in. Sure, if we fast forward a few months, it's only going to be a few names in the conversation like that for the award, but whatever. We're 15 games in. Let's just talk about a bunch of dudes. I'm going to make sure to mention every guy on the MVP ladder right now on NBA.com and some other guys as well. And you know what? We'll start with the reigning MVP. We'll start with Joel. So my favorite thing that Embiid and Maxey do is when Maxey will throw it to Joel, and then Joel will just do a bounce pass kind of to the side of himself, and then Maxey will catch that on the go, and then from there it's the pull-up, it's back to Joel on a bounce pass, so then he can operate around the free throw line. And with Joel, obviously it's always going to be a combination of those things, and post-ups and face-ups and all of it. I do think there's been a few more catch and drives this year where it seems like he's choosing to close the space that a defender might be giving him on like drop defense or whatever. But really, I think the biggest difference with Embiid this year, just look at the stats, is that the assists are higher, right? Sure, the turnovers are a little higher as well, but the turnover percentage increase versus assist percentage increase, like it's much more in favor of the assist percentage. And I think my favorite thing is these little plays that by themselves are not necessarily like a huge deal, but they add up over the course of a game. For example, in their recent one against the Nets, Joel had a play where he's bringing the ball up court early in a possession. He flips it to DeAnthony Melton on the wing. Joel then immediately fights to get post position, pulling his guy, but as well as Melton's guy in for a little bit, and then it's back to Melton for a three. After Melton threw it back to him, you know what I mean. In their recent loss to the Cavs, which was a nail-biter, went to overtime, there were like 4 plays late that Joel had great passes, but they didn't result in assists. Like a couple times where he found Daniel House or Tobias cutting. One, Mobley had a great block on a Tobias cut. Another time he found Maxey on this great bounce pass on an out-of-bounds play that Nick Nurse drew up. Maxey missed it at the rim, but like it was a great look from Embiid. And like, yeah, sure, he still had 6 turnovers in that game. It's not going to be perfect all the time, but I do think there's definitely a change there with Embiid. I mean, you can see just more plays of him directing traffic, pointing at guys, hey, you stand here, let's space out like this before we run the action. And, it's just cool to see with Joel, so hopefully it keeps up. Now we are going to get to the first guy who is not listed on the MVP ladder right now, Steph Curry. Look, here's the thing. You don't need me to give you a dissertation on Steph. You know he's amazing, whether it's he's running pick and roll up top or whether it's flowing within the Warriors offense. As far as how it's gone on around him, well, that's been talked about a lot this year. Between Draymond's suspension, Wiggins is slumped to start it, Clay, who it did have a couple of big games recently, but my biggest thing with Clay is he's getting the least amount of shots he's ever gotten at the basket, and before his injuries, he was always good for a lot of like cuts and straight line drives with the threat of his jumper, right? But now he's not getting those as much, and I've said many nice things about Chris Paul this year, how he's stabilized the bench unit, he's also played with the starters some, and how he just flows within everything they got going on. So pretty much, if everything around Steph can get to at least pretty good, then he could be able to just drag them to, 50-something wins and win MVP that way. That's like the case for it pretty much. Now let's get to Jokic, who is number 1 on the MVP ladder thing right now. So with Jokic, and this is going to come up with Giannis in a little bit as well, I think at a certain point you start competing with yourself. And so you look at it, it's all the box score numbers you want. It's 63 true shooting. It's not the 70 that it was last year. And I mean, that's still a great number. I guess what I could contribute that to is, yeah, he's shooting a few more jump shots this year. Perhaps taking the 3 when it's conceded to him a little bit more this year. And even with that said, in their recent one against the Magic, which they did lose through a disaster fourth quarter of not being able to like stay in front of Franz or Cole Anthony, they're giving up offensive rebounds and stuff. But in that fourth, Jokic was ruthless in the post, going at Mo Wagner or Goga, just drop steps, hook shots. But still, they fell apart in that game. I mean, in the Rockets game, this is with no Jamal Murray playing in all these games, by the way, even if they did have the crazy one win against the Clippers. But like, Aaron Gordon did not make a shot against the Rockets, and he was just overwhelmed in the post by like Fred stripping him or Jayson Tatum and Jeff Green swarming him. MPJ missed a bunch of shots, and like Jokic was able to do his normal Jokic things. And even that sounds reductive because Jokic is amazing. But that's just how the Nuggets look right now. I mean, against the Cavs, Jokic, he picks up 5 fouls. He plays 27 minutes. Like, it's just been a weird, small stretch here for them with Jamal Murray out. That will probably not end up mattering that much in the long run, but for right now, it's what's going on with them. They did also beat the Spurs, and I really liked the second quarter run where it was like Jokic and Christian Brown and Julian Strother and just those two playing off of Jokic with handoffs, and one of you cuts and one of them flashes to 3, and it was just kind of fun to see Jokic work with the bench guys a little bit. Now we go to Luka, and some things on Dallas first. They're trying to play with a faster pace. so they don't fall too deep into Luka or Kyrie. Please ISO us out of this half-court possession, even if, yeah, if you watch a Dallas game, there's still going to be a good amount of the ISOs and the pick and rolls. And okay, they're 7th in pace this year. Last year they were like 20-something. Okay, cool. Defensively, well, they're in the 20s, and that's what Derek Lively is still like being huge for him as a rookie, right? As far as Luka, as you would expect, a lot of ISO, a lot of screens with kind of anybody screening for him, whether it's Lively or Powell or Rashawn Holmes. Side note, in the recent Laker game, I liked how Rashawn Holmes had a bunch of seals in the paint on AD, which allowed Luka to get some finishes at the rim. That was kind of nice. But you've got like, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Derek Jones at times being like second screeners as the main screener. And of course, all these guys are getting lobs or catching drives or catching shoots off of Luka and Kyrie. As far as Luka specifically, I mean, he is shooting the most threes of his career, and he's also making the most he's ever made. And as you would expect, it's a good amount of step backs. It does feel like he's been going to the pull-up a little bit more. Like, it feels like whenever I watch them, there's like 2 or 3 times a game where he'll do a pull-up 3 in transition. Not to say he never did that, but it feels like a little bit more. And then, of course, he's always still a master at getting defenders on his back, off of screens, going into the floaters, or just kind of bumping guys for a second and go into these sort of fadeaways that are basically in the paint, or they're more so push shots. And I mean, he's like 87% at the rim or whatever. Like, yeah, I think when you're talking about specifically like the MVP race down the line, the question is just going to be, can Dallas approach a mid-tier defense to get enough wins for Luka to really be in the convo? Now let's get to Giannis, who's averaging, 30, 12, and 6 on 63 true shooting. The Bucks just had one of their wildest games you could imagine, where they came back from 25 to beat the Blazers. With the 2 plays in the fourth quarter, I remember the most being one time where Beauchamp helps off a thigh ball to block Jeremy Grant at the rim. I don't know why that was the one I remember. And then one where Brook ended up switching to Brogdon, and Brogdon got around him, but Brook did an okay job, and then Giannis helps like crazy, and then eventually they did it. They beat the Blazers. As far as Giannis specifically, he is shooting less jump shots this year, and his assisted baskets are up a little bit. It's not a crazy percentage, but it's like a little higher than it was the past couple years, which I suppose backs up the eye test of it's just a bunch of stuff that Giannis does in a half-court setting, right? It's sometimes he's going to get a screen from Bobby Portis or Brook. Sometimes he'll get a screen from like Pat Connaughton or something, Sometimes it'll be a screen for Dame, even if that might not be happening as much as people really want it to. Of course, you have the Giannis Middleton pick and roll, and in their recent one against the Wizards, Middleton only played 13 minutes, and yet I felt like I saw a lot of that action. You got some times where like Brook is throwing it down to Giannis on an entry pass if he's got good position around the rim. It's sometimes with Giannis on the opposite wing as you have the Dame Brook pick and roll going on. So, Giannis is great. Is it potentially him getting a little overlooked? Yes. I mean, he's like at the bottom of the MVP ladder right now, which does feel a little off, but also it's a pretty stacked ladder, so I don't know. Now we're going to go to SGA, who has probably been my favorite guy to watch operate an ISO this season. I think everybody knows the spacing that Chet provides for OKC and stuff, so SGA has more room to operate, and also Chet's just been fantastic. That's for another video, but I think my favorite thing with OKC's offense, before I talk about SGA specifically, is like even within their sometimes 5-outness, they can go like 4 out, 1 in with cutters, or like maybe someone will screen on the ball, whether it's Chet or somebody else. I mean, they've tried some like empty corner Lou Dort screening for SGA stuff. As they'll do that, they'll also have like maybe Isaiah Joe flash out from the paint to the 3-point line or something, to where, there's enough extra stuff going on, even if the baseline of a lot of spacing is great. Anyway, SGA, I mean, it's still just all the craftiness he's ever had, man. It's still so fun to see him like hit a defender with 1 or 2 between the legs dribbles to freeze him for a second, and then it's just straight line drive, but that freezing them for that split second was the difference, right? He's still a master at like in 1 second going from a full burst of speed, stopping on a dime, getting into his free throw line jumper. Watching him work against Caruso in their recent game against the Bulls was like just really fun. Just the defense Caruso was playing, and the fact that SGA was just making shots over him from around the free throw line, whatever. It does feel like there's been more backdowns for him this year. And I mean, listen, man, SGA, 36-6 on 63, 64 true shooting last time I looked at it. The Thunder are towards the top of the conference. Defensively, it's Chet protecting the rim. It's J-Dub on help. It's Lou Dort on the ball. It is also SGA getting into passing lanes. Now let's get to the most important basketball player in my life, Jayson Tatum, who is having his best 2-point shooting season of his career. He's shooting 60% on twos, 72% at the rim, more mid-range, more post-ups, which is mostly what I want to talk about here. And he's in the 95th percentile of post-up guys, according to NBA.com. I mean, just go down some of his possessions in his recent games. I mean, in their last one against the Hawks, I remember one specific possession. He's got Trae Young on him in the corner, off ball, immediately seals him, backs him down, give me the ball. It's a 15-foot fadeaway, that goes in. He had an ISO versus Wesley Matthews that quickly turned into a back down where he eventually kind of spun off of him and was able to finish. Wesley Matthews thought it was a foul. They've also been running some off-ball sets for him where he'll get a screen like around the baseline or whatever, and then he can come up and then, I think in the past that would result in him then getting it at the three-point line, but now he is kind of catching it within the three-point line more, and so in the Hawks game, that resulted in like one fadeaway that he made over DeAndre Hunter. In the Magic game, they ran that same set for him. It was Horford setting him the screen. In the Hawks game, it was Hauser. And it resulted in him taking a long two over Jonathan Isaac, which was an air ball because Jonathan Isaac he's huge. And actually, in that Magic game, while Tatum did have some success early, backing down like Suggs and spinning off of him or going to like the fadeaway or whatever, there were a number of times where like Goga's blocking him as a help defender, or, Jonathan Isaac's all over him, or Franz is blocking him. Like the Magic, they're a big team, and so it's going to be tough for wings to just post up on him all day. In the recent win against the Bucks, there were a few plays where he would have it versus Middleton within the three-point line, like on a clear out on the wing, which is different than an ISO at the top of the key, right? Of course, helps with, the spacing that Porzingis provides, and he also screens for Derek White some as well, which I like. I will say with Tatum, the side step three, step back, whatever you want to consider it, he's at like 33% this year. Whenever he shoots a step back three right now, I'm just like, ugh, that's my feeling. But overall, Tatum, yeah, he's doing well. Now we go to Halliburton, who's putting up, 26 and 12 on great efficiency. I mean, the absurdity of the step back three, the funness, that's not a word, but whatever, of the Pacers offense where they push the pace after made baskets. There was a play recently, I think it was the Blazers game, where Halliburton pushes it off of a made basket, and then he just fakes a pass when he eventually gets to the three-point line. He gets like Malcolm Brogdon to bite, and then he just shoots the three. And then the Pacers, they just run so many quick screens to keep the offense flowing for Halliburton, whoever, man. I mean, obviously Buddy Hield is great at, quick little screens and then going off to the wing. But, I mean, you've got, like, I don't know, Spain pick and roll with Jalen Smith, and maybe, like, Nesmith will be involved in it, right? You've got, like, Miles Turner will run, like, a fake handoff with Bruce Brown at the top of the key, swing it to Obi Toppin on the wing, who will then throw it to Halliburton, who's in the corner. Then Obi and Miles will set a double screen for Halliburton, which becomes a pick and pop with Turner and Halliburton. It's just beautiful stuff to watch. And Hallie being at the center of it all with the hit-ahead passes and his improved isolation skills and just, freezing defenders on in and outs, crossovers, putting together behind the backs and crossovers. It's just a great time. I highly recommend the Indiana Pacers. They're not going to win every game, but you're going to enjoy yourself. Now let's go to KD. We'll talk about Booker in a second here too. I think the recent game against the Wolves was cool with KD, where he's making post fadeaways over Jaden McDaniels. Not a lot of guys in the league can do that. I think I've already said this, but my favorite little Kevin Durant thing this year is whenever he and Nurkic will run the fake handoff, usually like on an empty side, and then it just turns into KD cutting to the basket. I like when the Suns have like Grayson Allen or Eric Gordon one pass away as KD is operating from the mid-range. And I mean, listen, KD's assist numbers have been pretty damn good. And I do think some of it's been just like simple pick and rolls up top where he's like finding Eubanks on the roll or whatever. Nothing too crazy, but just making plays. He's also had a knack for finding ways to screen for Goodwin, which is turning into like pick and pops or just general flowing of offense with Goodwin being involved in some way. I do think because we've just kind of normalized dudes being able to play into their mid to late 30s and still being amazing, LeBron, KD, Steph, that we don't take a second to be like, what Kevin Durant is doing at this age is still insane, especially coming off of the Achilles. He has been shooting 52% from three, even though it is Kevin Durant. I'm pretty sure that's going to drop at least a little bit. His three-point rate has been a little down. It does seem like there's a few more sort of post fadeaways, free throw line jumper type things for KD. I mean, he's making every shot, so yeah. Okay, now Devin Booker. First off, the three to beat the Knicks was very fun. You got a flip, handoff, whatever you want to call it, from Goodwin, and then he's just going in basically a dead sprint to the wing. It's a fadeaway three over Randall, and I forget who the second defender was. The big noticeable things with Booker are more free throws. The three-pointers are also going in at a crazy rate right now. The assists are higher, and to look at those assists, when you look at some of the plays he's pulling off, or whether it's like, two to the ball, then he's making a skip pass to like KD who's spaced in the opposite corner, or I can't remember what game it was, but there was a play where there was two to the ball on him off of a screen, and he could have picked the ball up pretty early, but instead he understood, I've got the angle here, and so he keeps the dribble alive, and then it becomes a Nurkic getting a layup at the rim, right? I think you've also got these like really quick little flips to Eric Gordon or Grayson Allen just as he dribbles the ball up court. As far as the foul drawing, I would say it's a combination of one, Booker getting a little better at getting defenders on his back coming around screens. he has had a knack for getting fouled on like mid-range pull-ups. It's a bit of like a Jamal Crawford thing going on there. Not to say it's happening a million times a game, but it does happen. And I do think he's also just been kind of fearless. I mean, you look at that Blazers game they had recently, a couple of those free throws, it was just him going right at DeAndre Ayton at the rim. Now let's talk about LeBron for a little bit. I think the way that I would describe LeBron right now, besides, he's great and all that, is that he, while still being an amazing athlete, he has adapted to the fact that he is 39 years old. And the way he's doing that is through having the most assisted baskets of his career. And so the way it looks is, simple catch and shoots, which he's been very good on this season. He's in like the 40s on catch and shoot threes. And it's kind of interesting to look at him sort of shuffle his feet to get ready for the jump shot. Like there's a bit more of a wind up there than you would typically see from like a great catch and shoot shooter, but it's LeBron, so it's fine. And then he also is getting, just a healthy amount of other things, whether it's cutting off of AD post-ups or face-ups, or like he's one pass away on the opposite wing from an Austin Reeves or a D-Lo pick and roll, and so then from there it's either a catch and shoot or a catch and drive. He is still doing a little bit of screening for Reeves on the ball. They'll sometimes get into like some empty side stuff where LeBron is initiating the action, throwing it to Reeves and then going to the screen. And then obviously his passing is still great. And, it's all just enough to take just enough off of his plate to where he can still at times do his physical drives or post-ups or whatever, even if obviously at this age he cannot do that for every possession anymore. And the last guy on the MVP ladder is Anthony Edwards. I will say that I kind of think Karl Anthony Towns has actually been the Wolves' best player for the last 7 to 8 games. But okay, Ant's on the thing. So with Edwards, I think we've just seen a few subtle things that when you put them together can lead to a big thing, right? I mean, I've already talked about how he's traded in some of the contested threes that he normally takes, and he's now taking pull-up twos or contested twos, and the mid-range percentages have been really good so far. We will see if that holds up. His free throws are a little higher. He's just making better reads, whether it's finding Rudy on the roll or Conley on a skip pass, whatever. It sounds kind of basic, but I mean, we always knew the talent was there for Edwards. He's been doing this for a while. It was more so just maximizing his efficiency and stuff like that. Which, ironically, usually when it comes to maximizing efficiency, you tell guys to shoot less mid-rangers, but I don't know, maybe for him it'll be good for him. Listen, there's a lot of guys. So last year, I made such a big deal about Darren Fox's free throw line jumpers that are technically considered paint shots, but they're free throw line jumpers, right? He's shooting more of those shots this year, and he's shooting them on a slightly better percentage. He's at 55% on 6.5 a game, to be exact. Now, if you want to go through the whole shot chart, his threes are way better, his long twos are a little worse, his stuff at the rim is a little worse. Even so, I think a lot of that's just going to sort of normalize to whatever it ends up being. The free throw line jumpers still being this good, to me, it's just crazy. I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my mind thinking about De'Aaron Fox free throw line jumpers. I mean, it's simple screens with Sabonis, it's handoff actions, it's sometimes double screens with Sabonis and whoever else is going to be on the other end, Harrison Barnes, whoever has the second screener. And then obviously Fox's shiftiness and how he can stop on a dime to get to the pull-up is just, Darren Fox, he's great.